Alec Baldwin jealous of the Trump-Kim relationship, frisky preschoolers, and Mindy Kaling puts a big fat foot in her mouth. Next on The Dr. Duke Show. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Duke, and thank you for joining us. As always, I am joined by Katie Petrick of The Healthy Republic. She's here for the countdown. We indulge her. Katie, what do you have for us this week?
This week is another historic week, and we're not sure what historic means yet, but we do know that President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea were able to meet in Singapore, and they got an agreement out of it. There were 4 points made in this agreement, and mostly what we can see from these 4 points, the first two don't really matter. They're just talking about how we're going to have peace and prosperity in the Korean Peninsula, which would be great. But when you get to point number 3, this is where Chairman Kim Jong-un agreed to complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, before we get all excited about this, we're not quite sure what it really means. And unlike what Michael Scott says, where he declares bankruptcy, we're not sure just a declaration is going to get any action taken.
I declare bankruptcy!
So I declare peace in North Korea is not going to cut it.
I don't think it will.
Well, look, you know, there's a lot of cynics out there, even a lot of so-called conservatives out there who are kind of figuratively peeing all over this, arguing that nothing was signed, that nothing's going to come from this. So what? Bottom line is, as Donald Trump himself pointed out, it didn't cost him $150 billion to get one of the most dangerous actors on the world stage to sit down over a Big Mac in Singapore, right? So one of the things we like about Donald Trump, and we recognize his weaknesses and his hyperbole, but one of the things we like about Donald Trump here at on the show set is the fact that he does things differently. I think the reason Donald Trump is president is because he, as an outsider, is doing things that the establishment, Republican and Democrats, wouldn't do. And I fully recognize the fact that some of the things that Trump's going to do aren't going to work. They're going to be failures. Whenever you try to do something new, whenever you think outside the box, you're going to have wins and losses, losses. But I think that's why Donald Trump is president and probably will be president again in 2 years for a second 4-year term, because he sat down with Kim when Obama and Bush and Clinton all hemmed and hawed, engaged in long-distance negotiations, basically tried to use North Korea as leverage for other geopolitical problems in the world. Donald Trump, in his usual inimitable Donald Trump way, simply said, hey, let's just sit down and talk about this. And Kim Jong-un, again, one of the most irascible dictators, perhaps the most irascible dictator, not named Mullah something or other, in the world today, flew to Singapore, sat down with Donald Trump, and at least agreed by handshake to make overtures. The fact is that if Kim Jong-un wasn't somewhat serious about at least thawing relationships between the West and himself, he wouldn't have come. He did come. It's a step in the right direction. Will it work? I don't know. But I'll tell you this again. It won't cost us $150 billion, number one. Number two, it's not going to be like the so-called Iran nuclear deal, which stopped nothing. All right? What's the worst thing that could happen here? That Kim Jong-un goes back to being who he is. And when that happens, I'm pretty sure that Trump will take more significant action, unlike any other president's done when they've been lied to in these treaties.
Yeah, and what happened, what's so unique about this situation and what President Trump did and what Chairman Kim did was they sat down in a room and there were 2 translators. That's it. I mean, to be one of those 2 translators in the room with those 2 to actually understand what was being said, I think it'll be interesting if we ever get their take on it, the translators' take. But President Trump actually showed him a video, and it was called A Story of Opportunity. And basically, in Trumpian fashion, we know that Kim likes Western culture and he likes, you know, the videos. So he had this long video that was talking about here's what, you know, North Korea could be. Because if anyone knows anything about North Korea, I mean, they are in the dark completely. They don't know what is happening in their country and that they're even basically enslaved to what's happening in North Korea. So it was interesting, that kind of a, you know, marketing maneuver that Trump did, and we'll see, again, like you said, what will come out of it.
And again, what drives the American left nuts is that Kim agreed to do it, right? Remember up during the Olympics how Kim and his sister, his crazy sister, and these weird Orwellian cheerleaders were the liberal toast of the Olympics, right? And how there was they were sticking it to Donald Trump. They were showing up and boasting about their culture, regardless of what Trump, the dictator, says. Now the same fella has sat down with Trump, and the the left doesn't know how to react to this. Bottom line is that Donald Trump is doing a good thing here. It's a good first step. You, American media, seem to believe that this is as far as Trump's going to take it. Those of us who've been watching Trump for the last few years know this is a step. It's not the end of the journey. Just like a couple weeks ago when it seemed like the summit was called off, then you started mocking Trump for not making the summit happen. You mocked him for agreeing to the summit. Then the summit got called off and you crowed and bragged about his impotence for not having the summit. Now the summit went off and you just don't know what to do with yourselves. If nothing else, Donald Trump, by doing this, whatever happens in North Korea, has exposed the American left, particularly the media, to more of the object scorn which it so roundly deserves.
Yeah, and we know that already when they were making the signings, I don't know if you saw it, during the actual signing, which is supposed to be a nice, just opportunity, great caption show, Jim Acosta of CNN, of course, had to yell out. And he did it twice during the thing. And President Trump actually, I think, kind of batted him down pretty nicely. But, again, we'll see what happens. But I want to move on to, I guess I don't know how to segue this one other than to say we're encouraging now sexual play for preschoolers. So on the University of California, Santa Barbara, they host a website that's actually controlled by the sociology students, and they are encouraging parents now to allow young children to participate in what they're calling sexual play. The website says children might display affection to their friends by hugging and kissing or touching each other's genitals, which is perfectly normal. Parents should not react in a negative way because children are just exploring.
Yeah, so this is the University of California at Santa Barbara. The sociology department hosts this website. And if you read the actual article, it's pretty staggering what these lefty do-gooders are arguing. That basically any kind of sexual exploration for kids as young as 4 and 5 years old, parents should stay out of it, number one. And if they're going to intervene, they should be positive about it. There's one particularly glaring statement that if you encounter 2 4-year-old boys exploring each other sexually, your attitude must remain wholly positive. Whatever you do, your attitude must remain wholly positive. I mean, can you imagine any other way of dealing with little children? Trying to get a kid to go to bed, right? And then when the kid doesn't go to bed, your entire response is, now it's wholly positive that you're awake. You don't have to go to sleep if you don't want to, but it's your bedtime, right?
Yep.
We know what's going to happen here. This is simply one more way to get parents out of the way kids develop, the way liberals think kids should develop, right? If liberals had their way, we'll get rid of all parents, get rid of families, get rid of family homes. We'll make the raising of childhood a village experiment, as provided the village is full of progressive idiots. Only liberal villages will raise these kids. They'll be touching. But here's the other thing. How long then before they're touched? Right? And also, we keep hearing from the academic left how no means no, boundaries, you're never allowed. These kids don't have the ability to consent. Little boys and little girls don't have the ability, particularly little girls, don't have the ability at the age 4 to consent to being touched. So when they're being touched by other 4-year-olds, it's not consent. There's no possible way a 4-year-old could grant that. So rape culture, what you're promoting here by your own stupid, twisted liberal logic is rape culture for 4-year-olds. Congratulations, American left.
Well, and what we're learning, and this is happening just down the road here in Wisconsin, is they're going to be educated now on when it is appropriate for an adult to touch them. And we see this in it's called the Human Growth and Development Curriculum, and a local school board will be voting on to approve this. And it's going all the way down to kindergarten, first, second, third grade, as to what the children are going to learn about. And we get in the first grade curriculum a book that is called Who Has What by Roby H. Harris, and it actually gives visuals of the different genitalia that a boy has versus a girl. And in second grade, they're going to be participating in body image, and they're going to learn about personal goals. They're supposed to set personal goals about resisting like the impact of media on their body image. And they will also learn about anatomy. And these lesson plans that have been provided, and they're on websites, you can go and read them yourself. I encourage everyone to look. They actually have an exact script for the teacher to follow. They said, quote, most people have a vulva and a vagina or a penis and testicles, but some people's bodies can be different. Your body is exactly what is right for you. And this is for second graders to somehow be able to comprehend.
Yeah, we have actual images of what's going to go into a local school district here in Wisconsin. They're going to vote on it next week. Pictures of naked adults drawn with little babies and little kids. for first graders. Back in the 1970s, one of the big objections to sex education in the schools was it wouldn't stop at biology, right? It wouldn't stop at sperm and egg or bee and bird. It was going to inevitably evolve into sexual morality and encouraging sexual behavior and curiosity and stimulation. And that's where we are today. And we're teaching now elementary school kids in this particular school district here in Wisconsin, this is a first grade textbook that they're considering using. Why do you have a sexuality text grade for 6-year-olds? Why do you have a sexuality textbook for first graders, 6-year-olds? Why in the world is that necessary? These kids are their minds have not evolved yet. They're not abstract thinkers, they're literalists. Why are you putting images of naked adults in front of 6-year-olds? It's utterly unnecessary. There's no possible virtue in this other than to encourage more sexual curiosity, more sexual experimentation, and waste more classroom time where you could be teaching them meaningful skills that a 6-year-old mind could process properly.
Well, and what it says even in some of the images that they have is talking about how, well, a mommy would have, the baby and it's in uterus and that's below the stomach, and what actually happens, a 6-year-old's mind is going to go directly to, okay, I'm a girl and you're a boy and I'm curious. And that's what they're wanting, is boys and girls to be more curious and to touch each other, as that's aptly told by our Santa
There's
Barbara.
no possible way. They are educating kids, not in any sense of the word education. What they're doing is promoting certain behaviors. They are instilling, promoting, rewarding, praising, and drawing kids to certain kinds of behavior. The one thing we know absolutely categorically is true. You got a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, they respond to praise, they respond to attention, they respond to being patted on the back for something. If you're modeling sexual mores, you're modeling sexual play to kids that young, you're going to get more of it. If you tell them that this is good and wonderful and right, they're going to want to do it to please you. You are putting ideas in kids' head. You are mapping their future. You are destigmatizing. You are pulling away a child's natural modesty, restraint, all of these conditions that are required for serious adult relationships. You're reducing them simply to sex and sex play. This is what you're doing to kids too young to know any better. This is called brainwashing. Another word for it is indoctrination.
Exactly. And speaking of something which may affect the birth rate, we have a therapist who's claiming that women are not having kids because, Donald Trump's president. In a Washington Post column, Petula Dvorak, she's the journalist.
Petulant or petula?
Petula.
Yeah,
well, she's not the therapist. She's the one who wrote this op-ed. And she said, part of her study, she looked at the National Center for Health Statistics, and it shows that, yes, the birth rate for the U.S. is going down. We've known that. Last year, it was 3.8 million babies were born, which was the lowest number in 3 decades. Well, she talked to a marriage and family therapist named Ann Davidman, who apparently runs classes that focus on asking women or encouraging women to whether or not they want to have children. And so Ann Davidman said, as her own results have shown, that right after the election happened, she had people cancel on her class because Donald Trump's election made the choice that they will not have babies.
Well, if Donald Trump caused liberal women, because only liberal women buy this nonsense, if Donald Trump's election caused liberal women to stop having babies, then we need to give him the Nobel Peace Prize right now. Because what the world does not need is more hysterical liberal babies following in the footpaths of mothers this stupid. How dumb do you have to be to think that having a baby now, by the time that baby's old enough to be sexualized in first grade, Donald Trump will no longer be president no matter what happens? And so what happens if the next president makes Barack Obama look like a Nazi, he's so far to the left? Then you won't have babies to grow up under the wonderful world of President Gavin What's-His-Face from California, right? Gavin Newsom. Think Pajama Boy Justin Trudeau,
yes.
Only more pajama-y. And you've got Gavin Newsom in California. So you don't have kids now, progressive liberal women, when your future utopian state happens after the whole country and the whole world comes to reject Trump, after he's impeached, right? When the Democrats take control of the House and the Senate in the fall, then you're going to be SOL, right? And then by the time you go about conceiving babies, then the next president to follow may be far to the right of Donald Trump. In other words, plan your reproductive cycles based on who's president. That's liberal female thinking right there.
That pretty much sums it up. Well, Davidman also claims she's so proud of herself. She's delighted, overjoyed really, that I do not have a child. And I think we're all in agreement on that.
We share that sentiment, Miss Davidman. We share that sentiment. We really do.
Okay, that ties right into, you know what? Why can't we just hate men?
Oh, yes.
Another Washington Post column, that one came out this week, and Susanna Danuta Walters, a professor of, you'll never guess what, Sociology and director of the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program at Northeastern University, says, you know what, it is in Donald Trump's actual election which pushed her over the edge. She was pushed over the edge a long, long time ago, asking, why can't we hate men? And this is a little bit long, but I think it's worth reading. So she says in her column, in this moment, here in the land of legislatively legitimated toxic masculinity, is it really so illogical to hate men? For all the power of #MeToo and #Time's Up in the women's marches, only a relatively few men have been called to task, and I've yet to see a mass wave of prosecutions or even serious recognition of wrongdoing. On the contrary, cries of witch hunt and the plotted resurrection of celebrity offenders came quick on the heels of the outcry over endemic sexual harassment and violence. But we're not supposed to hate them because #not all men. I love Michelle Obama as much as the next woman, but when they have gone low for all of human history, maybe it's time for us to go all Thelma and Louise and Foxy Brown on their collective butts.
Yeah, and this is just simple, stupid left-wing professor rhetoric. This is not surprising, but what it marks to me is something really interesting. For the last 15 years or so, academic feminists have hated men. They've taught other women to hate men. That's the big problem here. Teaching younger girls to hate men, teaching younger girls that men are responsible for all their problems, all the world's problems, that these women would all be queens and princesses, they'd all be millionaires and completely career actualized if it weren't for the men in their lives. Despite the fact that you got that going on, here's what bugs me about this story. What you've seen now is one of the first salvos. Well, why can't we hate them? Right? It's one thing to blame them. It's one thing to accuse them. It's one thing to teach girls that men are wicked. It's one thing to decry the patriarchy, to argue that everything bad in the world is attached to a penis. You can do that. That's one thing. But to then take that subtle next step and suggest, well, why can't we then hate them? Because if you can hate them, then you can persecute them. If you can persecute them, then you can kill them or arrest them, right? And so what this sociology professor is doing is simply advancing the cause in the next logical step. If men have done bad things, then we have the right to hate them. We shouldn't apologize for hating them. Not only should we hate them, but our hate for them should ensue consequences. Our hate should be manifested in how we treat them. That's where we're heading from this. Think about where we were 10 years ago. You could not have gotten away with a statement like that. Now you can call Sarah Huckabee Sanders a see you next Tuesday on national TV and have nothing happen. Now you can have sociology professors at these universities arguing that I want to hate men. We should be allowed to hate men. In fact, hating men should have consequences that we get to decide. All men, by the way, not just those #guilty men. This is the problem. And 10 years from now, what you're going to see is the legitimization of hate, right? We now have the right to formally, publicly hate people we deem intolerant, and to treat them the way hated peoples and groups have been treated in the past. That's just coming down the road. You watch what's going to happen next.
Well, I mean, in her column, she even says, you know, she addresses the men who claim to be with her and with feminists, and she says, get out of the way, basically. She says, step away from power. We got this. And please know that your crocodile tears won't be wiped away by us anymore. We have every right to hate you. You have done us wrong. #because patriarchy.
You have Notice the collective here. This is the worst kind of collective guilt. Can you imagine saying this about any other collective group, right? All black people are violent. All Chinese people drive badly. All women are emotional. These feminists would call you a glorified hate monger if you did it and demand from your ouster from any position that you had. Yet when it comes to collectivizing 49.5% of the human population without the slightest bit of irony, she gets away with it. And they will continue to get away with it because nothing seems to check this. The idea that you would defend men. Think about the liberal celebrities who have come to the defense of men and what they face, right, for pointing out the obvious here. And another thing, Miss Professor, while we're at it here, what about the fact that you've got all of these women, we mentioned this last week, who knowingly and using their free will chose to drop their pants for Harvey Weinstein so they could get primo parts in movies, right? This is not just all men are all patriarchy. There's a real problem with toxic femininity, right? The idea that you think you're going to sleep yourself to a first-rate Hollywood career, and then 25 years later, turn around and blame the system that you just got rich off of, and then argue that it's only men's fault? Sober people know better. The question is, how many sober people are there left? Certainly not many in academia.
Well, the ones who are sober are getting, basically ridiculed too. So anything at this point, we're at a point now where anything that goes against the, I guess, overarching agenda, if you step out of line, even one tiny step, you're going to get persecuted. And it shows here, we have a story coming out from CrossFit, which I, of course, partake in. It's a fitness regime, and it's a company based out of California. CrossFit basically just came out and said they fired their spokesperson, who on his own personal Twitter page, his name is Russell Berger, on his own personal Twitter, said that pride is a sin. So what happened is a CrossFit gym in Indiana was going to have a pride event, and the gym canceled the event because it's Pride Month, and the gym canceled the event, and then Russell said, hey, I agree with what it is because pride is a sin. Well, basically, how dare you say that on your own personal Twitter page, and acknowledged that he said, I personally believe this. He ended up getting fired from CrossFit because of his statements. Yeah, the Supreme Court just decided that a particular Christian baker was right not to bake a cake for a gay wedding because it offended his religion. In that particular, they wouldn't go any further, but that's what they just decided. Here you have a similar situation in Indiana, where an Indiana CrossFit organization, surrogate, decided they weren't going to host a gay pride parade. And of course, now we've got heads rolling left and right. Well, and on top of it, it's not even Russell Berger he's from headquarters, the gym itself, because they got so much flack and hate back, actually has to close the gym. Yep, that's right. And so we see this again, right? And we've got yet another ubiquitous I hate Chick-fil-A story coming up. I won't eat a chicken sandwich because the owner of Chick-fil-A actually supports traditional marriage causes. You can engage in this kind of stupid activism all you want, but at least be consistent about it. If I have to sell you cakes, then you have to acknowledge me too. You have to abide by what I believe is important. This weird idea that only progressives get to demand things and only progressives get to have their feelings taken into account, it doesn't work that way. And at least the Supreme Court, however half-assed their decision was, however much they passed the buck on striking down states like Colorado's punitive behavior towards people of religious faith who simply seek to exercise conscience. We've got to start recognizing, and you feminist professors as well, yours are not the only opinions in the world. Just because you consider yourself tenured and woke doesn't mean that there's not another side of the story or that there are other ways of seeing things. Nor are, in the situation that we're dealing with CrossFit here, right? This idea that you don't have the right as a business owner the obvious answer comes to mind, right? If I'm a black baker, you going to really make me bake a cake for a Ku Klux Klan supporter? If I'm a Jewish baker, are you going to really make me bake a cake for a PLO terrorist? And the answer is no, you never would. If I'm a female baker, and some man comes into my shop and demands a great big penis cake with the words "women suck" on it, you would not insist I have to bake that cake, would you? So get over yourselves, practice a little balance here, and recognize that what you keep claiming you care about diversity means more than just what you believe, ladies. So the left is eating its own cake. The left is eating its own because Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, how dare he go into a Chick-fil-A, order a chicken sandwich, and enjoy it. And so he put out on Twitter, he basically just said, I got a sandwich, it was great. And he got blasted for it because how dare he go against, this is against LGBT pride in Pride Month nonetheless. And so what does he do? He caves to the mob. He tweeted, "You're right. Completely forgot about their background." And he's referencing what happened back in 2012 when the owner of Chick-fil-A, Dan Cathy, here's what Dan Cathy actually says. Tell me if this is against anything that would make you not want to eat the chicken sandwich. He says, "We are inviting God's judgment on our nation when we shake our fist at him and say, we know better than you as to what constitutes marriage. And I pray God's mercy on our generation that has such a prideful, arrogant attitude to think that we have the audacity to define what marriage is about." That's what Dan Cathy said, and apparently you can't eat chicken sandwiches now. Well, what drives me nuts is the CEO of Twitter, the founder, one of these leaders of Twitter. First of all, they're using the forum Twitter to crack down primarily on conservative speech. Let's be clear. We've had many examples of radical left-wing speech that has not been censored on Twitter, but very, very minimally right-wing speech on Twitter has been censored. So this guy is a droning left-wing tool bag anyway. He goes to Chick-fil-A with his impeccable liberal
credentials. He eats a chicken sandwich. There's a picture of him holding up a shake. He's loving the food, right? And now because the outrage machine has been ginned up and LGBTQ activists now are protesting, now he cowardly backs off. Man up, dude. The problem is not with the chicken sandwich. Maybe there was too much estrogen in that chicken sandwich that turns these big, strapping Silicon Valley tech-type swaggering CEOs into crying little girls when somebody attacks them. Just eat the damn sandwich, right? You don't have to apologize for eating a sandwich. And as far as the Chick-fil-A thing, if I were Chick-fil-A, you ought to come out with some kind of a promotion. During Gay Pride Week, right?
Month. It's a whole month.
Gay Pride Month, wear your rainbow suspenders to get a free chicken sandwich. Ooh. Because here's the thing. Dan Cathy has never said he wouldn't serve gays chicken sandwiches. He never said he didn't want gays in his store. He never said he would not hire gay employees or promote gay employees higher up the food chain there. He never said any of that. He simply said, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. So, in other words, Chick-fil-A has a much more humane, dare I say it, liberal policy towards gays than the gay mafia does to anybody who wants to eat their own damn chicken sandwich.
Well, and the gay mafia came out, and in HuffPo, that says, if you really love LGBTQ people, you just can't keep eating Chick-fil-A. The author wrote, if you care about queer people or you yourself are queer, you have absolutely no business eating at Chick-fil-A, period. Ever, period. It's really that straightforward.
Is it my imagination, or have we yet to find, are chickens, are there gay chickens?
I'm looking for them. I
mean, I could see it if some of the chickens we were slaughtering to feed people with Chick-fil-A, if they were gay chickens, they could be martyrs for the cause. But I see a sandwich, and I see some delicious waffle fries, by waffle fry. I see some delicious waffle fries. I do not see how that is offensive to anybody. This is just the gay mob now insisting. Anybody who, for whatever reason, has slighted us or offended us or, heaven forbid, disagreed with us, you gay people must march lockstep to our Heil Gay, I suppose is the argument, right? Notice that my wrists remain limber. Hers were the limp ones. You must march in absolute goose step formation behind what the gay overlords tell you you should and shouldn't do, what you should and shouldn't eat. The gay friends that I have, the gay people that I know, they'd be the first ones to tell our authors like this, go chicken yourself. Go chicken yourself.
You know what? That ties in nicely to what we're going to talk about next.
Okay, what's next?
Go chicken yourself. We have so many different stories happening every single week. And they involved idiocy and single characters, most of them celebrities, a lot of times politicians. And so I decided we're going to do a Dunce of the Day contest. So I had an entire list of who could be the Dunce of the Day. This list has been narrowed down after careful consideration.
So we are going to try to make this a regular thing, right? Maybe every now and then, do the Dunce of the Day.
You out there on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening this, let us know who you think every single week should be the Dunce of the Day. So there's always someone who comes up quickly that week.
How many entries do we have for this week's category?
This week, we narrowed it down to 5 contestants. And it starts off with someone, the chicken. But Robert De Niro at the Tonys this weekend, which the Tonys, who watches that? But anyway, at the Tonys, he took such a brave step. He was so courageous in going out on stage in front of all those people and said, F Trump.
F Trump. Go chicken yourself,
Trump,
basically.
Go chicken yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got a standing ovation from the Manhattan crowd. This is like Adolf Hitler marching into a Bavarian Nazi rally in 1938 and getting 10,000 Heil Hitler salutes, right? I mean, of course, De Niro played to the most utterly slavishly submissive and fawning crowd possible. I'd love to see him go to a Trump rally and do that. Show up at one of Trump's rallies and do that, Mr. De Niro. And don't bring your armed bodyguards. Let's see how that one plays for you. This is the worst kind of virtue shaming, right? He may as well be talking to a room full of people who just look De Niros, right? 2,000 De Niros listening to him talk in the Tony audience. Well,
I'm sure he practiced at home in the mirror. I mean, he did talk to himself.
It's not brave. It's not edgy, it's not transgressive, it's not the least bit dangerous, it's certain to be met with the approval of the liberal media. I mean, my God, again, if Samantha Bee can use the "see you next Tuesday" phrase on national TV and nothing happens to her, the idea that little Bobby De Niro is going to get up there and call Trump the F word, that this is going to give everybody the vapors, it's so predictable that it's just cliche.
Yeah, but it was also predictable that Trump would fire back at him,
Yeah.
and he called De Niro a very low IQ individual. Well, he only used a couple syllables there to say F Trump. So
I mean, if you're somebody who thinks F you is a tremendous commentary on social mores, and maybe you are a bit low IQ.
All right, so
I mean, after all, he made his money by what? De Niro didn't write scripts, didn't produce movies. He made his money what? Reciting the lines that somebody else wrote. That's not a high IQ job.
All right, and so he's contestant number one.
So number one, De Niro.
That's number one. Number two is Bill Maher. This week he said that he actually hopes the economy will go into recession, because if the economy goes into recession, well, that means we can get Trump out of office.
Yeah, and so Bill Maher, who has a long, predictable history of saying ridiculous things, another one, right? I mean, he's on HBO. He's got the same audience that De Niro has. He's gotten filthy rich by saying dumb things like this. It's hard to take this very seriously. Yes, you want the economy to tank so that people will reject Trump and we get a new president. Maybe we can get maybe the economy will tank. We'll get Barack Obama back as president, and the economy will get worse, and then we'll all be happier. Hard to take Bill Maher seriously. I mean, at least you got to say of Bill Maher, he recognizes that if his own free speech rights are going to be protected, he's got to protect the rights of others. So at least he's on the right side of that. But I mean, this is pretty tame given some of the stupid things Bill Maher has said over the years. So that's two down. Who's our third? Who's our third candidate?
Well, Nancy Pelosi. I just feel like she's going to be a staple here on Dunce of the Day. So Nancy Pelosi, in her weekly commentary, she actually says, and you have to listen to the audio, she says, hip hip hooray, unemployment is down. She's actually critiquing unemployment being down.
She's mocking it.
She's mocking it. She's saying, oh, who cares? Because it means nothing without higher wages.
Hip hip hooray, unemployment is down.
Nancy Pelosi, again, hard to get exercised about this. In fact, this actually helps conservative causes. We should probably give her an award, not the Dunce Award. Maybe we ought to give her the Covert Republican Party Award, because the more she poo-poos low unemployment, the more she mocks the fact that more blacks are working than at any time over the last 50 years, the more she poo-poos the notion, right, that more women are in the workplace, that food stamp levels are at their lowest. The more she does that, the more she makes Trump's point, right, that what you left-wing demagogues want is not more liberty, freedom, and prosperity. You want more dependence, control, and lack of liberty. So keep talking, Nancy. It's hard to fault you when you show your true colors. And what colors are those?
All of them.
All the colors of the rainbow, right?
Well, you know what? If you don't want Trump, that's okay. We can get someone who kind of sort of looks like Trump, because Alec Baldwin thinks he 1,000% would beat Trump in an election. So here comes 2020.
What does it say that of the four people we've considered so far, Baldwin may be the dumbest? I mean, maybe the dumbest. Would you? It'd be a big runoff between him and Pelosi. That's right. Well, so what did Baldwin say? He said he would beat Trump in an upcoming election.
In 2020, he says, I would absolutely win. I 1,000% would win.
Didn't he also say he was going to leave America if Trump won?
Yeah.
Wasn't he one of those guys?
I think he's still here.
Yeah. So he's a liar, right? So we're not going to take Donnie Baldwin all that seriously. He basically says he would beat Donald Trump in a runoff. Here's a guy who engaged in gay slurs when talking to a reporter, called his own flesh and blood daughter a pig, terribly mistreated his wife, right? A guy who has been in one confrontation with good taste and manners for the past 30 years. In fact, I could think of nobody better to play Donald Trump on the screen. I mean, he's perhaps the one actor who has done the things that he keeps accusing Trump of, done them in more spectacular ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not that bothered by Alex either, because I'd love to see him do it. For once, Alec Baldwin, do what you promised to do, run against Donald Trump. I think that would be hysterical. And who's our fifth candidate? I'm not overwhelmed by any of them so far. In the Dunce of the Day, who do we have in fifth place here?
We have Mindy Kaling, and if you don't know who that is, it's because you might know her as Kelly Kapoor.
Kelly Rajanaganda Kapoor.
Sorry to misspeak there.
From The Office, Kelly
All right,
Kapoor.
Kelly Kapoor. So she gave the commencement speech at Dartmouth, and this is her alma mater. So Kelly Kapoor, I'm just going to call her Kelly Kapoor. Kelly went to Dartmouth, and she, of course, took the time, because she had the platform, to say that women do not have enough opportunities. And she, who is an actress, writer, producer, attended an Ivy League school and graduated from there, and is giving the commencement speech at said Ivy League school. It says women do not have enough opportunities.
Yeah, women do not have enough opportunities. That was the subset of her talk there as she's standing up in front of an Ivy League school, which most of the graduates, by the way, of the senior class of Dartmouth were women, right? Talking to a faculty that's loaded with women, working in all sorts of Hollywood venues, directing, producing, writing herself. Too few opportunities for women. And she also took the time to lecture men, didn't she?
Yeah.
What did she say to men on top of
Okay,
it?
so she said, this one is just for the guys. And so she addresses, guys, when you go on dates, act as if every woman you're talking to is a reporter for an online publication that you are scared of. One shouldn't need the threat of public exposure and scorn to treat women well. But if that's what it's going to take, fine. Date like everyone's watching, because we are.
Yeah, right. So, okay. So the message to all, the majority of women in that audience is you don't have any opportunities at the Ivy League, right? You have no opportunities in the world. To the minority of men who are sitting there as well, the argument is that we're watching you treat every woman like you would a reporter from a basically hostile newspaper, right? Isn't that called marriage? I mean, is that really, is it my imagination? Isn't that marriage, right?
There you
But here's the thing. Mindy Kaling isn't stupid, right? She is a talented writer. Mm-hmm. She's a funny actress. She is somebody who has made the most of her opportunities. She's obviously not mainstream white bread America. She is walking, talking, living proof that the opportunities for women and for minorities and for minority women, even for big mouth, stupid minority women, the opportunities are endless in this country. So I am going to officially go on record here as labeling Mindy Kaling my dunce of the week, because she should know better. Her life story tells her better. Her own experiences demonstrate better, and yet when she gets in front of a cud-chewing Ivy League audience, she goes full social justice warrior. Mindy Kaling, congratulations, you win my trophy. That was going to be who you voted for?
That was going to be mine. And my reason is what she says towards the end of the speech. She says, I'll tell you my secret. The one thing that has kept me going through the years, my superpower, delusion. I thought it just summed it up nicely.
Well, I mean, that was a delusion. And why, by the way, if you're graduating from Dartmouth University, is that the best you can do for a commencement speaker?
Apparently it is.
A B-level Hollywood actress?
Apparently it is.
I mean, it kind of blows the mind, right? That the kind of platforms that are offered to even moderately talented progressive people who talk a lot.
Yeah. It was interesting because Mindy says towards the beginning of her speech that when she was in their seats, she wasn't even paying attention, and the commencement speaker was Madeleine Albright, and so she didn't listen to her at all. I was like, well, okay.
Of course. And here's one more thing, Mindy. The character you helped create and the character you acted for about 10 years on The Office was an airhead, a bimbo, a tramp, a fool, somebody who was completely ignorant of her own culture. Somebody else had to explain to you what Diwali was. Remember that episode, Mindy? I remember that.
How dare you?
You were absolutely subordinate to Ryan Howard, the pastiest little white mousy dude. Let me ask you this, Mindy. What has more of an impact on girls across the country? Your 15-minute commencement speech at Dartmouth that nobody's ever heard? Or the fact that for 11 years on one of the country's most popular show, you modeled a completely unempowered dingbat? You used your platform on The Office to peddle a narrative of a stupid, airheaded, nonsensical, culturally ignorant bimbo who is overridden by her pencil-necked little boyfriend. Which of those two things, Mindy, do you think will stay longer in girls' minds? That's why you, Mindy Kaling, get Dunce of the Week.
Dunce of the day.
Dunce of the no. Dunce of the week. We won't see you till next Thursday, excuse me. Won't see you for a week. Dunce of the week is what for the whole 7 days, you get to hold that position.
Well, we agreed on the first one, and we'll never let that happen again. But we want to know what you think about what we're picking out here for being the dunce of the day or the dunce of the week, however you want it.
And for the record, we didn't agree. I was right, and you just piggybacked.
I had my notes here, and you have nothing.
I have no proof
to go
of that
off
whatsoever.
Of that. So,
ask Mindy Kaling.
Let us know who you think should be either a contestant for the Dunce of the Day or what you think about our selections for this first week. Make sure you head on over to Facebook, like us on there, share this with your friends, go over to YouTube, watch it again, or if you just want to listen to us, we're on SoundCloud and iTunes. Give us a nice, spectacular review.
And that is all we can take of ourselves for this week. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, and we will see you next time.